The Middle Ages is a time period from the fall of the Roman Empire to the Renaissance. It includes a lot of cultural changes and very interesting art techniques that developed over the years. One way to understand this kind of art and where it all came from is the spirit of the philosophy back then. A lot of the philosophy was theological in nature because most of the philosophy and the education and the educated people came from monasteries and places like that of religious learning. A lot of the popular philosophies then weren't really based on Aristotle's kind of form of logic and reason. It was more based off of intuition and mysticism, which I think could have been a quite interesting experience seeing cultures that are a lot like that back then. The very first form of art that took place there would be migration period art. This kind of art was based off Germanic paganism and things of that sort. It also, as you look later into the migration period art, you can see the Christianization of it. Migration period art has very zoomorphic features that reminisce of the South American artwork and traditions of back then in the early Middle Ages. It has a lot of animal themes and spiral designs, and I just like it. It's quite interesting and really gives you a flavor of really foreign cultures to you. You can also see as it develops things like the Celtic knots and things like that develop into Christianity, and you get the Celtic cross and other things along those lines. I think it's quite interesting and just very beautiful. It's probably my favorite time period for art. Next comes the pre-Romanesque period. It's defined by the build-up into the Romanesque period. Basically, it was when churches and things of that sort started to be coming into construction, and it really laid the foundation for, Romanesque period and how that kind of art would develop. It's when things like statues and other things along those lines were really being made, illuminated manuscripts, and a lot of other church traditions and things really came about in this time. It was a pretty interesting time for art, but not the largest. Now, to the Romanesque period, it would be a lot more, well, let's say it would be a lot more traditionally Roman. A lot of people seek to go back to those days of the Roman Empire and really the philosophy and culture they had. You can see this in a lot of the stuff they made. The Roman coins, they mimic the Roman coins with their coins. The crosses they put on the stones, and how the thick pillars worked. And a lot of this just build up to the Gothic period, which is the last one. The Gothic period would be very well illustrated by the Notre Dame Cathedral with all the statues and other things shown in that, and I really like how that looks. It held the old kings of France and things like that in it. It's a really good example of how Gothic architecture looks. It's really like a fulfillment and just the biggest version of the of the Gothic style. It had all these things like the panels and all this kind of stuff, and it was just very pretty. I loved it. I love how it looks, and I just love this class and everything.